Picture this scene with me. You're sitting in a conference room for a Q1 review, right? Your absolute best project manager is standing up front, proudly presenting the results of a 90-day AI pilot, and the numbers are absolutely incredible. Status updates that used to take 40 minutes, they're now happening in 4 seconds. Risk flags that used to get buried deep in 3 different email threads are now surfacing automatically every single morning. The team has literally saved 6 hours per week per person. The pilot worked. The room erupts in applause, the budget gets enthusiastically approved, and the company-wide rollout begins. Welcome to our explainer, where we're going to investigate exactly what happens next.
Because fast forward just 8 months in that exact same organization. The pilot, fast, successful, and celebrated. But the reality of the actual transformation, it's completely stalled. It's confusing. Honestly, it's dead. You might have 2 teams actively using the AI tools, while 8 other teams are supposedly just exploring them. 3 quarterly reviews have come and gone, all featuring this incredibly vague agenda item called Revisit Pilot Learnings, and nobody is quite sure what that actually means. The software license is paid, the tool is technically live, but the transformation has failed entirely. And this introduces us to the massive paradox of the pilot-first conventional wisdom. There's this belief that if you run a pilot to prove value and it succeeds, the transformation will just naturally follow. But the data tells a completely different story.
So today, we're going to uncover 4 streams of undeniable forensic evidence, explaining why this pilot-first trap kills AI adoption across the corporate world. And then we'll arm you with 4 critical questions you absolutely must ask to solve this case before your next pilot even begins. Stick with me through this, because answering these 4 questions is the difference between a vanity project and a true organizational transformation.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Where did this pilot-first approach actually come from? Well, it has a very specific lineage. It comes from McKinsey's Agile at Scale methodology, which, as you probably know, became massively popular between 2018 and 2021. And the logic itself is totally sound. It was borrowed straight from product innovation. The idea is simple: run small experiments, learn fast, scale what works. Now, that is brilliantly designed for product experimentation. It works perfectly if you're A/B testing a landing page or isolating a single product feature. But organizational transformation? That's a completely different beast. When you're trying to overhaul company-wide capabilities, testing an isolated feature in a highly controlled environment tells you absolutely nothing about how system-wide changes are actually going to function.
Which brings us to our first stream of evidence. In a 2026 analysis of industry transformation data by Suresh, Ommi, a staggering number was revealed: 70%. That is the failure rate of agile transformations. But the absolutely crucial part here isn't just the number. It's exactly when these transformations failed. They didn't fail during the pilot sprint. They didn't fail with the first hand-picked team. No, 70% of them failed at the exact moment they tried to scale across team boundaries.
What we're seeing with AI adoption today is basically the Agile precedent repeating itself. History is playing out in the exact same failure curve just a decade later. Think about it. Those teams running successful Agile pilots in 2010 didn't fail because the Agile methodology was inherently flawed. They failed because their pilots simply never tested the organizational gravity that naturally resists change at scale. I'm talking about things like legacy management structures, rigid incentive systems, and really complex cross-team approval chains. A pilot completely bypasses this gravity, so when you finally try to scale, all that organizational friction literally tears the project apart.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly it's validated by Pertama Partners' 2026 data on AI project outcomes. Pilot success rates are incredibly high. Organizations are actually fantastic at running pilots. But then, there is a massive drop-off at scale, leading to an 80% overall enterprise failure rate. Why? Because organizations engineer pilots to succeed. They highly control the variables, they remove all the friction, and they create a totally artificial environment. But the second you try to scale and those controlled conditions are removed, the success instantly collapses. The pilot was never actually designed to test the transition to scale.
Let's move to our third stream of evidence, and I gotta say, this one should stop every executive right in their tracks. I call it the McKinsey paradox. Drawn from their 2026 State of Organization survey of over 10,000 senior executives, we see that an incredible 91% of companies have successfully deployed AI in at least one business function. But on the flip side, 94% of those exact same companies report seeing zero significant value from those investments. Let that massive dissonance sink in for just a second. 91% adoption, but 94% are getting no real value.
The crucial takeaway here is that this is fundamentally an organizational problem, not a technology problem. Think about it. If 91% of companies have deployed the tools, the technology clearly works. The AI is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. The failure happens because the pilot was popped like a bottle of champagne and declared a massive success way before the actual hard work was even mapped out. And the really hard work isn't installing the software, it's changing how decisions get made, redefining how data flows between departments, and shifting people's daily roles.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what goes wrong. A 2026 synthesis of AI transformation failures breaks down the root causes. A massive 63% of failures are overwhelmingly due to human factors. We're talking about user adoption issues, stakeholder resistance, governance friction, and skill gaps. Only 16% of these massive enterprise failures were primarily technical in nature.
So this is the undeniable truth you just have to internalize. Pilots test the tech, but transformations test the humans. Think about how a pilot usually operates. You've got a hand-picked team. They're highly motivated, psychologically primed to want the project to succeed, and they usually have some executive sponsor watching their every move and clearing roadblocks for them. It's a human-engineered best-case scenario. But that environment completely fails to replicate the messy reality of resistant middle managers, intense political dynamics, and, everyday employees who are just trying to get their normal jobs done. So let's pivot and look at a path forward. Because I'm certainly not saying we should just abandon pilots altogether. Running a controlled test before committing millions of dollars in budget, that's just good basic practice. But as the lead investigator on this case, I'm telling you, we must fundamentally change what the pilot is actually designed to test. We need a completely different order of operations. We have to stop piloting the technology and start piloting the transformation itself.
To do that, here's the first of 4 critical questions you must ask before your next pilot begins. Number 1, what data does this AI need that currently lives in a different team's system? And what's the process to get access at scale? I want to pause and really let the gravity of cross-team data ownership sink in. In a pilot, a colleague might just email you a CSV file as a quick favor. But at scale, you need automated API access from a department head who might view that data as their own personal kingdom. Have you tested that friction?
Question number 2. What governance approvals get triggered when this recommendation crosses a team boundary, and who actually owns the decision if the AI is wrong? It's super easy for an AI to make recommendations in a vacuum, but in the real world, hidden governance friction and layers of accountability quietly kill scaling efforts. If the AI hallucinates or makes a bad call that costs the company real money, who gets fired? The AI? No way. A human does. Have you mapped out that chain of accountability in your pilot?
Question 3. Which stakeholders lose visibility, authority, or relevance when this process is automated, and have they been involved in the design? A purely technical pilot purposefully ignores this, but at scale, if a middle manager's entire job is aggregating the reports that your fancy new AI tool now generates in 4 seconds, they are absolutely going to resist your tool. They will find reasons it doesn't work. Have you identified the political dynamics and the people whose relevance is threatened by your success?
And finally, question 4, bringing us full circle to the loop we opened at the very beginning. What does scale actually look like for this organization in a median case scenario, with normal adoption rates and normal resistance? You have to stop testing the enthusiastic best-case scenario with your top-performing project managers. You need to design your pilot to test the median scenario, the average team on an average Tuesday dealing with average organizational friction. I want to leave you with this final thought. The pilot should be the smallest possible test of the transformation, not the largest possible test of the technology. The forensic evidence is perfectly clear here. The technology already works. The failure is organizational. If you can answer those 4 critical questions before you start, you aren't just testing a shiny new tool anymore. Your real job isn't to prove the AI functions. Your job is to build the organization that can actually survive using it. So I leave you with this. When you go back to work tomorrow, what exactly is your next pilot going to test?